Hello, Room 19. We are continuing with Blood on the River, Jamestown, 1607. We are now on Chapter 7. Such factions here we had as commonly attend such voyages, that a pair of gallows was made, but Captain Smith, for whom they were intended, could not be persuaded to use them. Captain John Smith. The next morning dawns clear and warm. Captain Smith is back in chains, and the gallows sits ready. Reverend Hunt calls us together for Sunday services. We meet gathered around the tree where Captain Smith is chained, so that he can join us. Reverend Hunt's sermon goes on for hours. I think maybe he will not stop until every single one of us has promised never to sin again. He says to tell a lie is a sin, and that any man who lies for his own gain and does not repent will spend eternity in the agony of hell's flames. He looks right at Master Wingfield and Captain Ratcliffe, delivering his sermons with passion. I see Master Wingfield squirm. Captain Ratcliffe sets his jaw and stares straight ahead. Captain Newport looks at the two of them and shakes his head. I send up a prayer that Reverend Hunt's sermon will save Captain Smith from his hanging. After services, I bring Captain Smith some food. I wonder if it will be his last meal. Yet he is calm. I've been a prisoner before, and I escaped before, he says. When I was a soldier fighting the Turks of the Ottoman Empire, I was captured and made a slave. They shaved my head, put an iron ring around my neck, and brought me to auction so I could be sold like a beast. James and Richard are nearby, and they come closer to listen. The other slaves told me it was useless to try to escape. Impossible, they said. But one day we were working in the fields. I was threshing wheat with a threshing bat. My master rode up on horseback with his whip. He cracked the whip, brought it down on my naked back, lashed my skin. I was enraged. I took my threshing bat in both hands and swung. He swings his arms as if knocking the cruel master from his horse once again. Down he came, and before he could get his footing, I beat him with the stub until there was no life. No wonder Captain Smith is unafraid of these pale, weak gentlemen and their threats. If he wants to, he will kill them with his bare hands. Then I shucked off my slave rags, put on my master's clothes, and rode off on his horse to my freedom. Captain Smith finishes his story. The three of us boys are silent. I admire his courage. Then I admire the way he talks back to the gentlemen, as if they have no right to lord it over him. I've never known another commoner who had the nerve to do that. Reverend Hunt comes up with a ring of keys. Dangling. He takes the keys to the clamps on Captain Smith's ankles. I've convinced them that without you as translator, we will all perish in Virginia, he says, as the clamps open and fall away. Thank you, Reverend, Captain Smith says, rubbing his ankles. I owe you a favor. So looks like Captain Smith is free again. Reverend Hunt gives him a stern look. This is the favor I want, then. I want you to at least act as though you have the proper respect for these gentlemen. If you insult them and anger them again, they may choose their pride over their survival in the New World. Captain Smith nods, and I wonder if he really does plan to be polite to the exalted gentleman from here on in. He is at least as stubborn as I am, so I know it will be hard for him to change. That afternoon, the sound of chopping wood rings out over the rumbling of the waves. The gallows is cut up and thrown on the fire, where it nicely roasts our fish for supper. So that's a good change. After 6 days on Nevis, I am fatter. The birds are so tame we pluck them out of the bushes with our hands. The sea is teeming with fish, and the trees are full of fruit. The only natives on the island are afraid of us, and they stay well hidden. I am also cleaner. I have gone twice to the hot pools in the forest to bathe. But now Captain Newport says it's time to leave. We pack up the tents and cook pots, barrels we have filled with fresh water, meat and fish we have dried for the rest of our voyage, in crates full of pineapples and mangoes, plantains, coconuts, and wild bird eggs. We sail past the Spanish island of Vicui, Puerto Rico. We stop at the island of Mona just long enough to get fresh water, and for a group of gentlemen to go hunting. They leave in the morning, taking a few soldiers with them for protection from the natives. They dress as if they are going pheasant hunting on a cool English morning, in silk doublets, velvet breeches, stockings, shoes, and felt hats, with their powder flasks hanging at their sides. The group returns in the evening, exhausted and faint, carrying what the expedition has killed: 2 boars, several iguanas, and the gentleman, Edward Brooks. They say Brooks' fat melted inside his body in the extreme heat. Captain Smith has a few choice words to say about gentlemen who are too ignorant to know they should carry enough water on a 6-mile hike in the tropics, and too ignorant to take off their extra clothing when they get hot. But this time he is wise enough not to utter these words, where any of the gentlemen can hear him. I did not know Edward Brooks well. He was a passenger on one of the other ships. Still, it was strange to see him that way. I wanted to talk about motives, specifically character motives. So, what is a motive? Whether one uses motive or motivation, the idea is the same. A character's motive or motivation is nothing more than why a character does whatever he or she does. It is the reason or reasons for a character's behavior. So as we get to know the different characters in this book, it looks like we're getting to really know Reverend Hunt, we're getting to know really well Samuel Collier, and we're really getting to know Captain John Smith. And we're seeing that Captain John Smith is handling some situations a lot calmer and cooler than some other men might, and that's really paying off for him. Also, motives can be selfish. You can be thinking about oneself when you're acting a certain way. And often you might need to infer a motive. However, if you do make an inference about a motive or motives, make sure you cite evidence from the text when you make that claim. Here are 2 discussion questions. 1, what happened to Edward Brooks? What I want to say is Edward Brooks did not make it through this chapter. It looked like when they went hunting, he got heat stroke or so much heat exhaustion that his body could not take it. So the main thing that John Smith wanted to say is, 1, they were dressed wrongly for that trip, and 2, they did not have enough water to be safe for that trip. Your discussion question for this chapter is, would you be willing to make the trip from England to Virginia on one of the ships in this fleet? Why or why not? We're already on to chapter 8 almost, and they still have not made it from England to Virginia. I wanted to do a little bit of a social studies review. And it kind of matches this chapter because someone didn't adapt to the different environment. So I wanted to review different environments with Native Americans. So remember, in California, we have 4 different regions. We have the coast, the mountain, the valley, and the desert. Now, each one of those regions has specific weather that's pretty common to that region. And the weather is what they're experiencing at that moment. Are they experiencing snow, sleet, hot weather, dry weather, rainy weather, humid weather, foggy weather, clear weather, sunny weather? Climate is what the weather in an area year after year. What is the common trend for the weather at that time? And adapt is to change to fit new conditions. So the Native Americans were really good at adapting into their different environments. And these environments, they had to worry about food because food is one of the needed things for survival. So Native Americans, some of them hunted, Some of them hunted animals, and some of them fished. They gathered berries, nuts, acorns. They farmed. They grew corn, zucchini, and other different plants that would help them for food. And they were very good about using the different things in their environment and being resourceful in their environment for their clothing and tools. For example, I know some Native Americans use deer antlers as some of their tools for farming. I hope you enjoyed this chapter, and I look forward to reading the next chapter with you. Bye, everyone.